Bruna Papandrea, super producer. Think Nine Perfect Strangers, Gone Girl, Wild, Big Little Lies, The Undoing. Want to know the secret of our superpowers? Please join us here. Thank you for watching. So, but I do want to come and focus in on this superpower because I want to know where it comes from. And I know you grew up in Southern Australia in a place that's called Elizabeth, that's got nothing to do with
the Queen.
That it's
no, like I do make the joke. Yeah.
The crown is not the right.
No, definitely, it's not the crown. No,
like Snowtown, which is the scariest movie I've ever.
It is Snowtown. Essentially, that's the place exactly.
But you were government housing. Your mother, am I right in saying, Amazing Maria, had 2 sets of twins under 2?
Yeah, under what? Yeah, I mean essentially under 1. Like, you know, my brother and sister were May 1970, and my twin and I were July 71. So it was very close. Yes, yes.
Humanly possible.
On her own. Let's be clear. So yeah, she was. You know, by the time my twin passed away at birth, and then yes, she had 3 children, essentially 1 and under, on her own.
Wow. Yeah. But she gave you this sense of possibility. Is that right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it's funny. You know, it's you know, we had a great childhood and also a very, you know, kind of supportive Italian family. Lots of great aunts, grandparents who live around the corner. You know, and obviously I was very close to my brother and sister because we were all very close in age. And yeah, she's, you know, my mum's kind of amazing because, you know, now that I'm a mother, I kind of appreciate it more, which is, I mean, she was the opposite of, you know, what so much parenting is in America, right? Which is like helicopter parenting. Like, you got to do this and you got to do an after school activity and you know, you have to expose your kids to all these things. Like, you know, we definitely found our way and we all played sport and we were all interested in different things, but there was no pressure. Like, you know, I think she was just happy if we were happy. And in a weird way, for me personally, because I had a lot of drive, I found that quite liberating, you know, because I felt like she was always really proud of me, you know, like, and she was proud of my brother and sister, you know, in the same way. There was no, like, she was no more proud of me than she was of them, you know, like she was happy if we were happy. So yes, raised by Maria and you know, that close Italian family, and
then which is quite creepy and weird, Googling your best friend and then watching the videos about you. But I found out that there were some things that you actually didn't do 100% successfully, and
I don't know what you're talking about. That is
I'm talking about acting.
Well, I mean, maybe the people who didn't let me into drama school said I wasn't a good actress. That doesn't mean I wasn't good at it, does it?
I love that you somewhere said that all these actors have turned producers, so why can't you?
Exactly. I mean, by the way, I do not think it's too late for all those casting directors who are watching this. No, I did. I desperately wanted to be an actor. In fact, I did a lot of acting at high school. I went to a special music school and I was the lead of the school play. And then drama was my favorite subject. And then I applied to all the great drama schools in Australia. Not once, but twice. NIDA, VCA, you know, Western Australia, where Hugh Jackman went. Nah, all reject. I kept telling myself that I'd like to accept anyone too young. I was 17, but I don't know. Maybe it was more than that.
No, it wasn't.
Maybe I just didn't have the gift. And then I really wanted to be a writer. And I did. I wrote a play that got accepted to the Young Playwrights Conference. That gave me a false sense of belief that I was a good writer. And unfortunately, I'm not. I'm very envious of good writers, much more than I am of good actors. My husband's a great writer. You're a great writer. I get very envious. I think it's a gift I wished I had, because I think that I actually I have a lot of stories that I would be able to tell more of, I think, if I could write. But unfortunately, I can't. And apparently I can't act. I think we got more chance of me acting than writing. But
and And then also, I'm going to bring this up only just that it will give other people hope, because you didn't complete university.
Oh God, no. Not only did I not complete it, like I did like a couple of months. I started got very high marks in high school. Very high marks. I loved school. And I thought, well, I've got such high marks, I'm going to go study commerce law, because I was the first person in my family ever to go to college, university. So I did that. And it was actually, I mean, I make jokes, but it was actually a little bit sad, because even though you're not paying a lot of money for university in Australia, I remember that everyone in that, a lot of people who were studying that just came from wealthy families. And I remember feeling like a total outsider. It was easier because I'd moved interstate, because I could say, well, I'm living, in this nice suburb with my aunt. But every time I said where I was from, there was a stigma attached to it. And as there is with many places that get stigmatized because of, the socioeconomic circumstances. And I think it's why I'm so passionate about helping girls from low socioeconomic circumstances, because I do feel like, this label gets put on you. And someone said this the other day. There's an amazing woman who started an organization here who reached out to me. And she said, I want to thank you for talking always about where you're from, because what we found is people who went to Ivy League schools, and my husband went to an Ivy League school. I know many people that went to Ivy League schools. They talk about it. They always thank the school they went for. They thank their community. They kind of pass it on. It's like a badge of honor. But when people didn't, they don't tend to advertise it as much. And what she was saying is, it's crucial that we do, because it's my job to make that young girl sitting in Elizabeth believe that she can do that. She can do anything she wants, that, and whether that's path is education or educating yourself. So yeah, that's a long-winded saying. I was there, but I always fantasized about being at university and college. I love the ideal of it. But the truth is, I wanted to be in the world, and I was very anxious to be in the world, and I wanted to get experience in the world. So I dropped out, and then I went to work, for an Italian theatre company, and doing a bit of acting. And I didn't give up, didn't believe, still don't believe that I'm not the next Nicole Kidman. I think I could be. It's true. And so I did a bit of that, and then I found myself drawn back to university. So I went back to Adelaide University, and I was like, I'm going to study languages and arts. I'm going to take another direction. So to really, really make my life difficult, I decided to study French, Spanish, and Italian at the same time. It's like so insane. And I was so confused that after 3 months, I just thought, well, I'm not going to do that. So I dropped out again. And then I somehow found my way. I worked as a barista. I've had every job you can imagine. I've made hot dogs. I've worked in an old people's home. I've cleaned supermarkets at night. I mean, I have done every job imaginable. And it's funny because I still think I have this longing that I missed out a little bit on that experience. But I think that's partly, I remember I really felt it when I went to work for Anthony Minghella, who you and I know. We can get to that. But he was like a professor, he was like, if he hadn't been a director, he would be a priest or a teacher, that's who he was. And so I always felt like so inadequate. There was always part of me, I was like, I just feel like I can't articulate things in a way that, someone who'd been to college would be able to. And that was my own, anxiety. And, because who finds what that means?
Let's go to Anthony. You got there via only having produced one film, Better Than Sex. Wonderful film, charming, everyone recommend. But Anthony met you at Toronto and just saw your superpower.
Yeah. It's actually a great story. It's like one of those things because people say to me all the time, like, what was the big moment? I said there was a couple, but that was the dreams come true moment. And it didn't feel like that at the time. But, yes, the great thing about the Australian business is you make a film, the government helps you go to these festivals, which is such a gift because they understand that's how you meet an international community and how you go on to make more films. And so yes, I was there, and I had some Irish friends who'd put all of Samuel Beckett's Alan Maloney and Michael Colgan. They had made all of Samuel Beckett's plays into films with an astounding 17 different directors, astounding array of directors. So I was just friends with this group of people, and Anthony had directed one of them, as you know, and so I would be at these dinners, crazy dinners in Toronto, and Anthony would always say, like, I remember he would say at the dinner, this is well before I worked for him, he would say, I feel like we're all listening to a radio station, but I'm on a slightly different frequency to the rest of you. I was like, yes, I understand totally what that means. Anyway, and so he kept saying to me, and he was actually there, I found out later, meeting Hollywood women, development executives, because he was looking for someone to run his company that he just started with Sydney Pollack. Sydney was in LA and he was in London. And he's like, yeah, you should come see me if you ever come to London. And I was like, yeah. I'm going back to Australia, and, I'm amazing. I'll see you later. And I remember I went off to Tokyo, and I went off to Korea, and it was amazing. And then I went back to Australia. And by some kind of, stroke of amazing fortune, the movie got into the London Film Festival, and no one could go. So I was like, I'll go. And the government paid for me to go. And I think a friend of mine at the time, Damien O'Donnell, said to me, well, you should call Anthony Mangala. He said, call him. I was like, oh, okay. And so I called him, and we had a drink. And then he's like, oh, well, you should read this, maybe you could read this book for me and a script, and, just give me your thoughts. And I was like, okay. I mean, I really didn't take it too seriously, because I was like, the idea that these two men wanted me to go work for them was so foreign to me. Like, I'd made one $900,000 movie, and I was going back to Australia, and it was about to be released. And so I read them, and I talked to him about them. And he said, I'd love you to go meet Sydney Pollack in LA. And I go, well, when? He goes, well, next week. And I go, but I've got to go back to Australia. And by the way, they weren't offering to pay. I had no money. I had zero money. I mean, my whole life, but I had zero money. And I loaned $1,000 off my friend Damien, and to go to change my ticket. So I flew to LA. And this is definitely like one of those player moments where I was like driving into the Paramount lot to meet Sydney Pollack. And, you've met Sydney Pollack. When you meet Sydney Pollack, it's like meeting the king. Yeah. Because also he's been on screen. He's so iconic, right? He's the kind of array of movies is so mind-blowing. And I remember I kind of drove into the Paramount lot at the time, and where they were, and I sat down, and he basically was like, so you're going to come work for us? And I was like, well, maybe. I mean, it was so bizarre. And so I flew back to Australia. And then 2 days later, the phone rang. It was Anthony. He said, yes, well, we'd like you to come and live in London in 4 weeks. And you're going to pay you this much money, which felt like such a big amount. I never paid anything to make films. And in another stroke of fortune, I have an Italian passport, which enabled me to just pack up my life and move to London. Amazing. And take an amazing opportunity that was absolutely the opportunity that changed my life. But that whole kind of sequence of events, when I think back on it, is just so brilliant. And I years later, and you know this because you knew Anthony, I said to him, like, I don't even understand, like, why did you hire me? Like, now that I know the business, and I'm like, know how much experience people have and who they were and how remarkable that opportunity was. And he just said, I think you're smart. I thought you were smart. And I knew you would make me laugh every day. I knew we'd laugh. I knew we'd have fun. And I think that is like, that kind of sums up, number one, who he is, but also how I live my life now and how I choose to do business with people. If those two things aren't true, I don't work with people, and I think that is like, I have a theory now that, mostly if I don't want to have a meal with someone, I don't want to collaborate with them. Like, I just have to be able to have
That-
Shouldn't be all work. It's, you
Yeah.
know,
That is
Yeah.
the brilliant, it's test, except all the restaurants are shut right now. But and we're not allowed to see each other. But nevertheless, that should be the gold standard. And we will, as soon as we're unlocked, we'll implement it. And there's so much to talk about, but I do want to get on to made up stories. So galloping fast forward.
Oh, you just skipped over like 20 years.
Well, should we just go there? Do you have time? I have time. I have
No. Yes, no. We can do the abridged version of my crazy career. And the only reason I like to talk a little bit about my career in terms of the way it went is because, as you know, it lines up perfectly with relationship breakups. So, really I have the career I have through, the good and bad relationships that I've been in, because, let's be honest, when I first got exposed to the film business, I was very young. I ended up in New York with no money. I ended up working on a film with the lovely Luke Perry, and ended up producing it. That's how I kind of got my first relationship breakup. Went back to Australia, made another film. London had nothing to do with a relationship breakup. Thank God I wasn't in a relationship, so that didn't stop me. But then did decide ultimately to leave London and move to New York for two reasons. One, relationship breakup. I was like, I got to get out of here. As you know.
Should we skip back to that night where you called me? Because I was breastfeeding a child. It was like midnight. I had to sort of...
I was not in a good place. That might have been the worst place I've ever been in, actually. I mean, emotionally. Yes. In my life. Yeah. I mean, I'm laughing now because I can, but I was depressed. And it never happened to me. And I really feel, in a way, I'm glad I got to experience what that felt like. I remember calling you, and I remember calling another girlfriend, Susie.
Yeah.
And I said, I can't get out of bed. I can't eat. I can't. And she said, you're going to walk down to the doctor and you're going to tell them how you're feeling. You're going to walk down the road in Primrose Hill, and you might need some help. And I did. I remember I went on Expo for 6 months to a year, I think. And because that chemical thing that people talk about, that it when you're not feeling it is so foreign. I understand that now. I understand that fine balance that people can tip either way.
It wasn't just a relationship breakup. You were going to get married. I mean, it was a huge...
Just rub it in. No.
I mean, it wasn't...
No. Yeah, I was going to get married, but yes, and it's easy, obviously, to talk about it in retrospect, because I should never have been engaged to that. Right, when you meet the person that you should marry, you kind of know that but that takes a lot of time, right? You can't see that in the moment. And then I met someone else very quickly after, and that ended up in very badly. Another reason why I wanted to leave New York ultimately and go to LA. See.
Love's moving you, but also you would.
But it all led me to the right place.
Yeah, I mean, the Lord was moving you towards Steve Patensky. So
that's right. Yeah, no, that's right.
God's plan.
And you meet people, when you are ready. Sometimes. I mean, I had met Steve, my now husband, 10 years before. He also had 2 broken engagements. We had a great track record between us. I mean, some of his family, I don't think, booked flights till the last minute to our wedding because they were not sure that it was going to happen. But if I'd met him then, it would not have been the right time. I wasn't ready. He wasn't ready. We came back together at the exact right time, which I really firmly believe, just like I firmly believe, as hard as it was to have kids at 41 and then to have twins, I wouldn't have been a great mother earlier than that. Like I needed, I was too, I had, my focus was elsewhere. And quite frankly, it still is. Don't want anyone out there to think that, mothering twins has to change anything. I make jokes, but it's kind of true. COVID has brought, it's kept us all together so much, which is very rare. And I'm really, my husband would say this, and I would say it in front of him. I'm used to being away filming, and I'm used to having that time to myself, that time to think, that time to you know, just focus on one thing, not 10. And it is hard. You know, you have 4 children. You, yeah, I remember when my kids were 9 months old, I went away to Make Wild, and I would go away and I would see them 36 hours on the weekend, and I would go back. And as hard as that was, when we tried to do it the other way, it was, everyone was suffering. The movie was suffering and the kids were suffering, because I think that, you know, for me, I'm better when I'm with them, I'm with them, and when I'm working, I'm working. And not that those two things can't coexist, they can. But I do think you still need that time, particularly when you're in a creative business, to like try and focus on, you know, give everything your all. So I'm away filming this week. It's been the first time I've been away like 4 days from the family.
How's it been?
It's been great. I'm not going to lie. It's been great. No, I miss them. No, I do miss them. But I've been so busy, and I've thought about this a lot this week. I've had a lot of reading. I've had a lot to catch up on. I'm trying to, there's just not enough hours in the day. It's really become, that this is the balance that we all struggle with. And so, as you know, I'm not good at, I have a lot of great people that work with me, but I'm not good at delegating a lot of smaller things. So what I'm trying to get better at, and that's my challenge right now, is like taking that help and support so that I can be freed up to do what I'm really good at. And that's kind of what I'm in the middle of now. And I'm excited about it.